This is Bone Chillers to disturb your dreams. Dare to join us? Click subscribe, ring the bell. But remember, we cannot guarantee your safety from the nightmares that await. Prepare to be thrilled, chilled, and filled with a sense of dread you'll find nowhere else. Welcome to the darkness. We've been waiting.
The A7 Highway Abduction, 1994. The night was pitch black, and the moon offered little consolation as Mark's tired eyes focused on the long stretch of the A7 highway near Valence. The lull of the engine, combined with the comforting vibrations of the road, made him question if he was even awake or living in some dream state. As he rounded a curve, a blinding light suddenly enveloped his car, forcing him to squint. The headlights, which once confidently illuminated the path, now felt redundant. His car abruptly stalled, and the dashboard lights blinked out, leaving him in an eerie silence. Suddenly, the weightlessness of space took over, and Mark felt his car and body lift off the ground. Panic overcame him, but there was nothing he could do. He might as well have been in freefall, with the world spiraling around him. When he finally came to, Mark found himself lying on a cold metallic table, bathed in a bluish hue. Above him floated grotesque creatures. Their large black almond-shaped eyes stared deeply into his, their grey, scaly skin glistening under the ambient light. Mark tried to scream, but his voice was lost and his body paralyzed. He could feel their cold, spindly fingers as they began to examine him. Needles probed, lights flashed, and he felt a myriad of strange sensations, ranging from burning to freezing. In the midst of the examination, one of the beings telepathically communicated with him. "Fear not, human. We mean you no harm." Mark's heart raced, terror evident in his eyes. "What do you want from me?" "We study. We observe. You return soon." Time became fluid. Moments felt like hours, and hours like mere seconds. Before he could fully process what was happening, Mark found himself back in his car on the A7 highway. The early morning sun began to breach the horizon, casting its golden glow on the world. He looked at his watch in disbelief. He had lost 7 hours. Shaken, he drove straight to the local police station. The officers there listened to his account, some with skepticism, others with suppressed amusement. They conducted a series of tests, checked his car for evidence, but everything seemed normal. Determined to find answers, Mark sought out a hypnotist, hoping that a deeper exploration of his subconscious might reveal more about the lost hours. Under hypnosis, he recounted the chilling details of the abduction, his voice quivering with a mix of fear and wonder. Word spread, and soon the media caught wind of Mark's otherworldly experience. UFO magazines splashed his story on their covers, and French UFO conferences buzzed with speculation and intrigue. Some dubbed it the A7 Highway Abduction, linking it to other mysterious disappearances and sightings in the region, but not everyone believed. Skeptics dismissed Mark's account as a fabrication or hallucination. Others thought it might be a clever publicity stunt. Regardless of public opinion, Mark's life changed irrevocably. He was plagued by nightmares and flashbacks. He became a recluse, avoiding the media circus that had surrounded him. But within certain circles, he was hailed as a hero, a beacon of hope for those who believed in extraterrestrial life. Decades later, on a chilly autumn night, another driver reported a blinding light on the A7 highway near Valence. His account mirrored Mark's almost identically. As debate raged anew, one undeniable fact remained. Whether you believed in the ethereal or the earthly, the A7 highway near Valence would forever be shrouded in mystery, a stretch of road where the boundaries between the known and the unknown blurred, where skepticism met wonder, and where stories of the inexplicable would continue to echo through the ages.
Nancy France Encounter, 1982. Nancy, Meurthe et Moselle was once a city of art and culture. Its cobblestone streets echoed the steps of past centuries, and its ornate architecture told of a rich history. Yet in 1982, it became known not for its past, but for a haunting experience that would reshape its future. It began one autumn evening. The city's lights began to flicker, and a sudden chill swept through the streets. People looked up from their routine affairs and stood still, eyes glued to the skies. Above, a colossal triangular craft hovered ominously, its surface glistening like dark glass. Michelle, a local journalist, was among the first to see it. Scribbling notes, he counted the number of lights, 7 in total, evenly spaced along its edges, glowing in an otherworldly blue hue. "It was like nothing I've ever seen," said Claudette, a cafe owner. "It was massive, yet it made no sound, not a hum, not a whisper." Word spread quickly, and soon people gathered on terraces, sidewalks and balconies, necks craned upwards, phones and cameras at the ready. Some were fascinated, others terrified, but all were in awe. Sophie, a schoolteacher, was holding a night class when the spectacle began. "The children were scared," she recounted. "One of them said it looked like a giant eye staring down at us. I tried to calm them, saying it was likely a government aircraft or a new technological experiment. But in my heart, I knew it was different." Local police received a surge of calls, but they were as clueless as the citizens. Military bases nearby reported no missing or rogue aircraft. The object remained still, lights pulsating, for nearly an hour. As the city's residents gawked and whispered, a smaller craft emerged from the larger triangle. It descended slowly, casting a brighter blue beam on the Place Stanislas, the city's central square. A few brave souls ventured closer, drawn to the light like moths to a flame. Emily, a young woman, was one of them. She later described her experience to a local newspaper. "It felt like time slowed down. As I approached, a voice echoed in my head, not in French, but in a language I somehow understood. It said, 'Watch, remember, share.' And then images flooded my mind. Visions of galaxies, of civilizations beyond ours, of great beauty and immense sorrow. Then, as abruptly as they'd appeared, the crafts ascended into the dark night, leaving only a void of silence and wonderment. The next day, Nancy was abuzz with speculations. Every local newspaper carried the story, and soon national and international media flocked to the city. Witness accounts were strikingly consistent, further adding credence to the sighting. In the following weeks, scholars, UFO enthusiasts and skeptics all had their say. Many dismissed the event as a collective hallucination, a product of societal stresses or perhaps an elaborate hoax. But those who were there, who felt the unworldly chill, who witnessed the silent dance of the triangular crafts, knew differently. Michel, who had taken meticulous notes that evening, published a detailed account in one of the most prominent UFO-focused publications. His work became a reference for enthusiasts worldwide. "I don't claim to know what it was or where it came from," he wrote, "but I do know it was real. And it carried a message for us, one of unity, of cosmic brotherhood. It was a reminder that we are not alone." Emily, the woman who'd ventured closest to the craft, was forever changed. She dedicated her life to deciphering the visions she'd received, painting vivid pictures of distant worlds and cultures. The triangular shape soon became iconic, etched into the memories of all who had witnessed it, and recounted in stories worldwide. Nancy, once known for its historic charm, became a hub for UFO researchers and enthusiasts, turning the city into a beacon for those who believed in life beyond the stars. Years later, the event remains shrouded in mystery. No concrete evidence was ever found, no official explanation provided. Yet, for those who were there on that chilling autumn evening, the encounter remains as tangible and haunting as ever. And so, the city of Nancy lives on, not only as a testament to its rich past, but as a reminder of the vast universe beyond and the infinite possibilities it holds. The Valensole UFO Incident, 1965. Valensole, a quiet town nestled in the Alpes de Haute-Provence, had always been renowned for its sprawling lavender fields. But in 1965, its notoriety shifted from aromatic fields to the inexplicable. Farmer Maurice Masse started that fateful July morning like any other. The sun had not yet breached the horizon, and he was preparing to start his day in the lavender fields. The aroma was intoxicating, a gentle mix of freshness and comfort. However, as he reached the field's edge, he froze. An oval-shaped metallic object, unlike anything he'd ever seen, lay in the middle of his lavender. Its surface mirrored the first rays of dawn, but what truly held Maurice's attention were the two figures beside it. Small, no taller than a child, with pale grey skin and large, black, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to absorb the surroundings. They moved gracefully, inspecting the lavender and the earth beneath. Maurice, overwhelmed with curiosity, took a step closer, snapping a twig underfoot. Instantly, one of the beings turned toward him. In a split second, it produced a slender rod-like instrument, pointing it at Maurice. He felt a sudden jolt and his limbs grew rigid. Paralyzed, he could do nothing but watch. The beings approached him. Their eyes, devoid of emotion, scanned him, as if trying to read his very soul. After what felt like an eternity, the beings turned their attention away from Maurice. They plucked lavender stems and collected soil samples, placing them inside a peculiar glowing container. The entire while, Maurice could feel their presence in his mind, as if they were communicating with him, not with words but with emotions, curiosity, caution, and a hint of sadness. Eventually, the creatures returned to their craft. As it powered up, the lavender around it quivered and a soft hum resonated through the air. With a sudden burst of light, the object lifted off, leaving the once serene field disrupted and scorched. The paralysis faded as swiftly as it had come. Maurice, drenched in sweat and still trembling, stumbled back home. His once familiar world turned upside down. By noon, word had spread throughout Valensole. Neighbours, reporters, and even a few government officials descended upon the farm. The press was voracious, snapping photos of the scorched earth, asking 1,000 questions. Books, articles, and speculative stories soon flooded the market. Despite the attention, Maurice remained consistent in his account. His sincerity was evident even as skeptics attempted to dismiss him. They said it was a hoax, that perhaps he'd inhaled too much lavender and hallucinated the entire event. Weeks turned into months, but something had shifted in Maurice. He began spending countless hours in the lavender field, particularly at the spot where the craft had landed. Whispered rumours suggested he was communicating with the beings, waiting for their return. One chilly October evening, Rosalie, Maurice's daughter, went looking for him. The sun had set, and the once vibrant lavender field was cloaked in an eerie fog. She found her father standing at the spot, his gaze fixed at the stars. Beside him was the same glowing container the beings had used. Rosalie approached cautiously. "Papa, it's late. Come inside." Maurice turned to her, his eyes distant. "They spoke to me, Rosie," he whispered. "Through this." He gestured at the container. Rosalie's heart raced. "Who, Papa?" "The beings. They're explorers, just like us. They wanted to understand our world, but they also left a warning." Rosalie frowned. "A warning?" Maurice nodded, holding the container out to her. It vibrated softly, and a series of images flooded Rosalie's mind. Visions of desolation, of fields barren and rivers dry. Their message was clear. Earth was in danger, and humanity was the cause. "They showed me the future, Rosie, our Earth dying. They've seen it happen on other planets. They wanted to warn us." Rosalie, tears forming, clutched her father's hand. "What can we do?" Maurice looked at the lavender, now wilted and grey. "We start by saving our home one field at a time." The Valensole UFO incident remained a topic of debate for years. Some believed, others scoffed. But for Maurice and Rosalie, it became a mission. They transformed their farm into an eco-sanctuary, leading conservation efforts throughout Valensole. And sometimes, on clear nights when the lavender's scent is particularly potent, one might see an oval-shaped craft hovering briefly, as if watching, waiting and hoping for a brighter future. Multiple sightings in the Ardennes. 1996. The Ardennes, a vast expanse of thick forests, winding rivers and undulating hills that spans Belgium, Luxembourg and parts of France, is known for its historical significance and picturesque landscapes. However, in the winter of 1996, the region attracted attention for a far more ominous reason. It began with a story from a retired schoolteacher named Marcel. One crisp evening, Marcel was out in his backyard tending to his vegetable garden. As he looked up, he noticed an unusual formation of lights gliding silently across the sky. They moved in a manner that defied the principles of known aircraft. Startled, he dashed inside, fetched his old camera, and managed to capture a grainy image. Marcel's story was picked up by a local Ardennes newspaper. The following week, more residents came forward with their own accounts. Stories ranged from inexplicable patterns of lights to large triangular crafts hovering eerily over the woods. An elderly couple, Luke and Madeleine, reported a humming noise accompanying a bright orb that pulsated and changed colours. They spoke of a cold, otherworldly feeling that washed over them as if they were being watched. "It wasn't from here," Madeleine whispered in hushed tones during a television interview. Word quickly spread across the Ardennes, and similar reports poured in from neighbouring Belgium. The phenomenon became known as the Arden Lights and was soon discussed fervently in cafes, schools and homes. Local authorities were initially sceptical, dismissing the accounts as the results of vivid imaginations or atmospheric anomalies. But the sheer volume of testimonies and the consistency in descriptions became harder to ignore. As the sightings grew more frequent, a sense of unease settled over the community. One evening, a group of teenagers decided to camp out in the forest to try and catch a glimpse of the elusive phenomena. Armed with cameras, torches and tents, they set up camp at a clearing deep within the Ardennes. By midnight, nothing out of the ordinary had occurred, but just as they were settling down, a bright beam of light pierced through the canopy, illuminating the entire clearing. Panicking, they grabbed their equipment and fled. One of the boys, Henri, managed to record a short video of the incident. The footage, shaky and blurry, showed the silhouettes of the teenagers against a backdrop of oscillating lights and the faint outline of a massive triangular craft. The video went viral. The Ardennes was suddenly thrust into the global spotlight, attracting UFO enthusiasts, journalists and skeptics from all corners of the world. The international UFO community was abuzz with excitement. The Belgian UFO wave had been one of the most well-documented and studied UFO sightings in history, and now the Ardennes Lights appeared to be a continuation or perhaps an escalation of the phenomenon. Jean-Pierre, a respected ufologist, set up a research station in the heart of the Ardennes. With state-of-the-art equipment, he aimed to document and, hopefully, explain the mystery. Night after night, Jean-Pierre and his team patrolled the woods, scanning the skies. It was on one of these nights that Jean-Pierre had a personal encounter. While reviewing some recordings, a blinding light filled his makeshift cabin. The equipment malfunctioned, and a low-frequency hum filled the air. Rushing outside, Jean-Pierre saw a colossal triangular craft hovering above the treetops. Paralyzed with a mix of awe and terror, he watched as the craft emitted beams of light that danced across the forest floor. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the craft shot up into the sky and vanished. Jean-Pierre was shaken. He had seen many inexplicable things during his career, but nothing of this magnitude. He immediately shared his experience, adding credibility to the countless testimonies of ordinary residents. Despite extensive investigations, no conclusive explanation was ever found. Theories ranged from secret military experiments to atmospheric phenomena to extraterrestrial activity. Skeptics suggested that the media attention could have exaggerated individual sightings into mass hysteria. The sightings dwindled as the year wore on. By the summer of 1997, the Ardennes Lights had all but disappeared from the skies, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. To this day, the events of 1996 remain a topic of intrigue and debate in the Ardennes. While many have moved on, there are still those who gaze up at the night sky, hoping for a glimpse of the lights that once stirred an entire community and captured the imagination of the world.
Thank you for watching, and remember, the darkness awaits. Until our paths cross again, stay fearful and stay subscribed.